The imperial crystal palace rose into the violet sky like a monument carved from living light. Its spires shimmered, bending the glow of distant stars, while energy veins pulsed beneath translucent floors. On this day, the palace was filled beyond capacity. Delegations from hundreds of conquered systems stood shoulder to shoulder, their forms strange and varied, scaled, horned, feathered, mechanical. All had come to witness an event that should never have existed. Their queen was to marry a human. Queen Elthery sat upon a throne of refracted crystal, her posture flawless and rigid. Her skin held the pale blue sheen of polished stone, unmarred by age or scar. Golden eyes, ancient and sharp, watched the massive doors at the far end of the hall. Two elegant horns curved from her brow, like a crown shaped by war itself. She was beauty refined by conquest, power honed over centuries, and she was furious. Her empire had shattered fleets, erased civilizations, and bent entire galaxies to its will. Yet today, to secure a fragile political peace with a primitive planet called Earth, she had been forced into this humiliation, a ceremonial union, a symbolic surrender wrapped in silk and false smiles. At her side stood High Commander Varric, encased in dark bioarmor that clung to him like an armored insect shell. His voice was low, edged with restrained anger. "My queen, this alliance is an error. Allowing a human into the inner sanctum violates every security doctrine we have." Eltheries did not look at him. "We know enough about humans," she said coolly. "Short-lived, fragile, emotion-driven. Earth sent us their most unremarkable citizen because they possess nothing of value." The great doors opened. A hush rolled through the hall. The human entered alone. His name was Daniel Carter. He was not tall, not imposing. No armor, no visible weapons, no symbols of rank. He wore simple dark clothing, clean, practical, unremarkable. His brown hair was cut short, his face calm to the point of emptiness. His eyes were gray, the color of distant storms, steady and unafraid. He walked forward at an unhurried pace. Whispers spread like poison. "That's a human? He looks like a servant. Earth insults us." Pathetic. Daniel heard it all and reacted to none of it. He ascended the steps before the throne and stopped, standing at an equal distance required by ceremonial law. For a long moment, queen and human regarded one another in silence. Elthery spoke first. "You are Daniel Carter," she said. "The man Earth has chosen to bind to me." "Yes," he replied evenly. "I volunteered." That answer caught her off guard. "You volunteered?" she asked. "Why would any being choose this fate?" "Because someone had to," Daniel said, "and I had nothing left to lose." Varric stepped forward sharply. "You will address the queen with proper reverence. Human." Daniel turned his gaze to the commander, then back to the queen. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered himself to one knee, not in fear, not in defiance, simply compliance. Elthery studied him closely. There was no hatred in him, no ambition, no desperation, only stillness. "Rise," she commanded. "Let's end this." The ceremony was brief and cold. A priest spoke in an ancient tongue Daniel did not understand. Bands of glowing alloy were exchanged, symbols of political unity rather than love. When the final words were spoken and the bond declared, no one applauded. The silence was absolute. At the feast that followed, Daniel was seated far from the throne, isolated at the end of a vast table. Alien delicacies filled the air with unfamiliar scents. He ate cautiously, speaking to no one. A group of nobles approached. Their leader, a tall, blue-skinned aristocrat with predatory teeth, smiled without warmth. "So," she said, "you're the queen's new pet. Tell me, human, do you perform tricks?" Laughter followed. Daniel met her gaze calmly. "I repair machines. I build things. I was an engineer on Earth." "An engineer?" she mocked. "So Earth sent us a pipe fixer instead of a warrior." More laughter. Daniel nodded once and returned his meal. She left, disappointed she could not provoke him. That night, Daniel was escorted to his assigned quarters, small, distant from the royal wing, sparse and quiet, more cell than chamber. He did not protest. He sat on the bed and gazed through the window. 2 moons hung above the alien city, one crimson, one pale white. The stars were unfamiliar. None of them felt like home. A device on his wrist vibrated softly. He activated it. A hologram of Ambassador Lena Marsh appeared. Older, sharp-eyed, burdened with years of diplomacy. "Daniel," she said quietly. "Are you alone?" "Yes." "How did it go?" "About as expected. They hate me." She hesitated. "You can still leave. We can extract you." Daniel shook his head. "No, I made a promise." "That promise was made to ghosts," Lena replied. 10 years ago. "They still matter," he said. "I remember." She sighed. "Be careful. If they learn what you really are." "They won't," Daniel interrupted. "I'm just an engineer now." Lena studied him, unconvinced. The transmission ended. Outside his door, a young servant passed by. Curious, she glanced through the narrow observation panel. For just a second, she froze. The human's eyes glowed, soft gold, like fire trapped behind glass. Then the light vanished. She hurried away, heart pounding, telling herself it was exhaustion. Humans were weak. Humans were ordinary. In the quiet of his room, Daniel exhaled slowly. Deep within him, something ancient stirred. Power, violence, memory. He forced it back down. Tomorrow would bring more insults, more isolation. He would endure it. He always had, because he wasn't here by accident. And when the time came, the galaxy would learn the truth. The Queen believed she had married a common man. She was wrong. 3 weeks passed on the Imperial throne world, and Daniel Carter faded into the background exactly as expected. No announcements were made in his name. No court titles were granted. No invitations followed. To the nobles and generals of the empire, the human husband was an embarrassment best ignored, a political necessity that could be quietly forgotten. Daniel did nothing to change that perception. He spent his days observing. He learned the imperial language with methodical precision, absorbing grammar, idioms, and tone until even native speakers could not detect an accent. He studied historical records late into the artificial night. Wars spanning millennia, conquered species reduced to footnotes, victories praised while costs were never mentioned. He memorized palace layouts, security rotations, maintenance tunnels, and emergency routes not out of ambition but habit. Old habits never truly died. He moved through the palace like a shadow, present, unseen, unnoticed. And that was exactly how he preferred it. The servants, however, noticed him. On his 4th day, Daniel encountered a young attendant struggling to carry a crate of energy cells through a narrow corridor. She was small even by imperial standards, her blue skin pale with effort as the box shook in her arms. Without speaking, Daniel stepped forward and lifted one side. She gasped, "My lord, you shouldn't." "I'm not a lord," Daniel said gently. "And this looks heavy." They walked together in silence for a moment before she gathered the courage to speak. "Why are you here?" she asked quietly. "I mean, why agree to this union?" No one wanted it. Daniel considered the question. "Because my people needed peace," he said. "And because I thought I might be useful." "Useful?" She blinked. "You're just a human." He smiled faintly. "People say that a lot." Word spread quickly among the lower staff. The human didn't give orders. He asked questions. He learned names. He listened. When equipment malfunctioned, he fixed it himself. When systems failed in forgotten wings of the palace, he went there personally. One evening, the heating network in the servant quarters collapsed, an aging system deemed unworthy of priority repairs. Daniel spent 3 hours inside access shafts, hands coated in grease, rewiring energy conduits and recalibrating regulators. By morning, warmth returned. The servants watched him in awe. "Our engineers said it couldn't be done," an elderly attendant said. Daniel wiped his hands. It just needed someone who cared enough to try. Reports reached the inner council. High Commander Varric stood before Queen Eltheres, suspicion sharpening his voice. "The human is gaining influence among the lower castes." "He repaired a heater," the Queen replied coolly. "That's how unrest begins," Varric insisted. "Kindness builds loyalty. Loyalty turns dangerous. Elthries dismissed him with a flick of her hand, but doubt lingered. She summoned Daniel that evening. He stood alone in her private chamber, surrounded by trophies taken from fallen worlds. Broken banners, shattered weapons, skulls of extinct rulers. She observed him carefully. "You have been busy," she said, "learning our language, aiding servants, fixing what we ignore." "I don't like being idle," Daniel replied, "and broken things bother me." "You speak as if people are machines." "In some ways," he said, "machines are easier." She leaned forward. "Tell me about Earth's military." He answered without hesitation. "Weak compared to yours. Our ships are slower. Our weapons limited. We've only traveled the stars for 80 years. Then why shouldn't I conquer your world?" "Because conquest is costly," Daniel said calmly. "And humans don't stop fighting just because they're losing." She studied him, intrigued despite herself. Before she could reply, an alarm sounded. An incident. Later that night, Daniel walked alone through a western corridor when armored figures stepped from the shadows. 3 soldiers, scarred and battle-hardened. The leader smiled with too many teeth. "You walk these halls like you belong," he said. "That ends now." Daniel stopped. "The commander sent you." They didn't deny it. Pain would reveal truth. They surrounded him. "I don't want to fight," Daniel said. "That's good," the leader laughed. But instead of moving, Daniel spoke. He spoke of their homeworlds, their families, their children. He named the leader's mate and unborn son, information gathered not through espionage, but conversation. He spoke of honor, of what it meant to raise weapons against an unarmed man in darkness. The soldiers hesitated. The leader's raised fist trembled. "What are you?" he whispered. "Just tired," Daniel replied. They left without striking him. That night, Queen Elthries visited his quarters unannounced. "My soldiers were meant to break you," she said. They returned afraid. "I talked to them," Daniel replied. She noticed the scars on his hands. Thick, white, old, not the scars of an engineer. "Who are you really?" she asked. "A man who wants peace." She didn't believe him. But for the first time since the unwanted union, she wondered, what kind of power chose not to be used? The diplomatic summit was held far from any empire's borders, on a rotating station suspended in neutral space. It was an artificial world of steel and light, large enough to host thousands, designed to impress and intimidate in equal measure. 12 major species had sent their leaders, each surrounded by guards, advisors, and centuries of distrust. Queen Elthries arrived aboard her flagship with full ceremony. For the first time since the unwanted union, Daniel Carter stood openly at her side. High Commander Varric objected, until the final moment. "This is reckless," he warned. "The galaxy already mocks us. Bringing the human will invite provocation." Elthries silenced him with a glance. "Leaving him behind would be a greater insult. I will not pretend my husband is something to be hidden." The truth she did not speak was simpler. She wanted to see him tested. The station's central hall was vast, its ceiling a transparent dome revealing the slow spin of stars. Alien leaders gathered in clusters, their conversations sharp and political. As Elthries and Daniel entered, attention shifted immediately. Whispers followed them. A towering warlord from an old rival species stepped into their path. His armored hide bore the scars of 100 campaigns, his yellow eyes burning with contempt. "So," he rumbled, "this is the Queen's human, Earth's finest offering." Daniel looked up at him calmly. "A creature that breaks if you strike it," the warlord continued. "Tell me, little one, can you even survive in vacuum without crying for help?" "I've never tested that," Daniel replied politely, "but I imagine it would be unpleasant." A flicker of confusion crossed the warlord's face. Elthries felt something unfamiliar tug at her expression. Amusement. Throughout the summit, the pattern continued. Delegates ignored Daniel or insulted him openly. Some called him a slave. Others treated him as a symbol of Earth's submission. He accepted it all without reaction. When questioned directly, he answered simply. When mocked, he remained silent. When challenged, he deflected with quiet honesty. "Why don't you defend your pride? One ambassador demanded. "Pride is expensive," Daniel said. "I'm trying to save resources." By nightfall, the summit moved into its formal banquet phase. Hundreds gathered in the station's grand hall. Music echoed through hidden emitters. Bioluminescent flora decorated long tables filled with food from a dozen worlds. Eltheres sat at the head table, Daniel beside her. Varric stood behind them, tense, his instincts screaming warning. Halfway through the meal, the lights failed. Darkness swallowed the hall. For a heartbeat, there was confusion, then screaming. Figures emerged from the shadows, assassins clad in black adaptive armor, blades glowing with toxic energy. They moved with brutal efficiency, cutting through guards and delegates alike, ignoring civilians unless they obstructed the path. Their target was clear. Varric reacted instantly, drawing his weapon and placing himself between the attackers and the queen. He fought with the skill of a lifetime soldier, but they came in waves. A blade tore into his arm. Another cut his leg. He fell, still swinging. Eltheres watched her guards die one by one. For assassins closed in. For the true rulers of the galaxy, one hissed. Death to the tyrant. She straightened. If this was the end, she would meet it as a queen. Then Daniel stepped forward. "Move!" One assassin sneered. "You are nothing." Daniel did not move. He did not speak. He simply looked at them. Then reality changed. He moved faster than sight. Golden light ignited around his hands. Clean and controlled. The first assassin collapsed before he could strike. The second and third were hurled across the hall by a force that bent the air itself. The fourth never finished raising his blade. In seconds, the tide turned. Daniel flowed to the attackers like a force of nature, precise, unstoppable, terrifying. He did not rage. He did not shout. He ended the threat with terrifying efficiency. When the lights returned, 12 assassins lay defeated. Silence fell over the hall. Every eye stared at Daniel Carter. His eyes still glowed faint gold. Varric stared from the floor, blood staining his armor. "What are you?" Daniel didn't answer. The light faded. He turned to Eltheres and extended his hand. "Are you injured, my queen?" Her hand shook as she took his. Human security forces arrived minutes later. The station was locked down. Survivors were detained. Ambassador Lena Marsh met Daniel's gaze across the chaos, her expression a mix of relief and grim acceptance. "You exposed yourself," she said quietly. "I had no choice." "There's always a choice," she replied. Later, in a sealed chamber, Eltheres demanded the truth. Daniel sat across from her, exhausted but composed. "Tell me everything," she said. He did. He spoke of Earth's secret program, of children taken and altered, of being shaped into weapons before they understood what killing meant, of 40 candidates, 39 who died. "I survived," he said flatly, "and I was very good at what they made me." She asked about the scars. "Training," he replied. "Punishment." "Why leave?" "Because someone showed me another way." "Why save me?" "Because I don't kill to escape anymore," Daniel said. "I protect now." Eltheres studied him in silence. For the first time, she understood the danger and the restraint. Outside the chamber, stars burned cold, and the galaxy had just learned that the weakest species might not be weak at all. The story spread faster than any fleet. By the time Queen Eltheres returned to her throne world, every sector of the Empire knew the truth. The human consort was no ordinary political token. He had annihilated a team of elite assassins in seconds. He wielded power no known species could classify. He had done it without armor, without weapons, and without hesitation. The Empire reacted in fear. Some called Daniel Carter savior, a protector who had shielded their queen when no one else could. Others whispered darker names, weapon, monster, deception. To them, no being with that kind of power could ever be trusted. High Commander Varric led that charge. Standing before the Imperial Council, his arms still wrapped from the summit wounds, his voice echoed through the chamber. "The human has deceived us from the beginning. He hid his true nature. Such power cannot exist without purpose. We must imprison him or eliminate him." The chamber erupted in argument. Eltheres listened in silence. When she finally rose, the sound of her movement alone silenced the room. "Daniel Carter saved my life," she said. "He saved yours, Commander. He saved this council's future." "That does not change what he is," Varric replied. "Weapons don't belong near thrones." "Weapons do not choose mercy," Elthries answered. "He did." She dismissed the council without further debate. That night, she walked the palace gardens with Daniel for the first time, not as queen and obligation, but as two beings sharing space. The alien flora glowed softly in the darkness, petals opening and closing with slow, rhythmic motion. Daniel paused often, studying them with quiet fascination. "Your world is beautiful," he said. "Strange, but beautiful." "Tell me about Earth," Elthries asked. "Not data, not reports. Tell me what it feels like." Daniel thought for a moment. "Earth is loud," he said, "full of motion. Forests that swallow sound. Oceans that make you feel small. Cities packed with millions of lives crossing each other every second. It's chaotic." "You describe chaos with affection." "Because chaos means possibility," he replied. "It means people can change." She considered that. Strength, to her people, meant control. Order, victory. Chaos was weakness. "Why do humans cherish fragility?" she asked. "Your short lives, your vulnerability." "Because knowing we can break makes us careful with each other," Daniel said. "We don't have forever, so moments matter." Something in her chest shifted, unsettling, unfamiliar. Later, she visited his quarters again. He was watching the stars. "As always, you have the right to better rooms," she said. "Why don't you ask?" "These are enough." "You ask for nothing. No title, no authority." "Why?" "I didn't come here to take," Daniel replied. "I came to build peace." She hesitated. "And if I offered you something more?" Daniel met her gaze. "You deserve someone who chose you, not duty." Before she could respond, alarms blared. A war room summons. A hologram filled the chamber. A warlord from the Dominion. An ancient enemy thought dormant. "We know what you possess," the warlord snarled. "The human weapon. Hand him over and we spare your worlds." Daniel stood silently as the council erupted. Elthries raised her hand. "What do you want to do?" she asked him. Daniel stepped forward, studying the star map. "They don't want peace," he said. "They want leverage. If we surrender, they'll attack anyway." "Then we fight," Varric growled. "No," Daniel said calmly. "That's what they expect." Silence fell. "Let me speak to them," Daniel continued. "Not to surrender. To offer something they don't understand." Elthries looked at him, searching his face. She reached for his hand. "We face this together," she said, not as queen, but as partner. Outside, fleets began to gather. War loomed, but for the first time, Elthries believed there might be another path. The flagship drifted at the edge of imperial space, like a silent mountain of steel and light. Its hull reflected distant stars, unmoving, patient. Behind it, 300 warships held formation. Every cannon charged, every shield humming with restrained violence. Across the void, space twisted. The Dominion fleet emerged from hyperspace in waves. More than 1,000 vessels filled the darkness. Massive dread carriers bristling with spines. Destroyers designed to fracture continents. Swarms of strike craft poured outward like insects released from a nest. It was not a show of force. It was a promise of annihilation. On the bridge, Queen Elthries stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her posture flawless despite the storm in her thoughts. She had commanded wars before, decisive, brutal wars, but never against odds like this. "They outnumber us 3-1, Commander Varric said. "If we engage, we lose." "We are not going to lose," Elthries replied calmly. Varric turned, startled. "How can you be so certain?" She didn't answer immediately. Her gaze shifted to Daniel Carter. He stood slightly apart from the command crew, hands relaxed at his sides, gray eyes fixed on the enemy fleet. He showed no fear, no excitement, only focus. "Because," the Queen said at last, "they believe power only destroys." The main communication screen flared to life. The Dominion warlord appeared, his scaled face twisted in satisfaction. "Queen Eltheres," he growled, "you have made your choice. Your empire will burn." "Before anything burns," she replied coldly, "someone wishes to speak with you." She stepped aside. Daniel walked forward. Murmurs spread across the bridge. The warlord laughed openly. "The human weapon. Have you come to surrender yourself? Your queen cannot protect you." "I didn't come to surrender," Daniel said evenly. "I came to tell you the truth." "Truth," the warlord sneered. Daniel took a slow breath. When he spoke again, his voice carried, not just the enemy flagship, but at every ship in both fleets. "I was made to be a weapon," he said. "A child taken and reshaped for war. I have destroyed fleets, cities, lives. I know exactly what war costs." Silence crept through the channels. "I also know what it leaves behind," Daniel continued. "Orphans, ash, hatred that outlives empires." The warlord's smile faltered. "Pretty words from a killer." "They are," Daniel agreed, "but I'm done killing." He stepped closer to the screen. "You can order your fleet to attack. Millions will die. Perhaps you will win. But what will remain? More ruins? More enemies born from your victory." "That is the natural order," the warlord snarled. "The strong take." "That's not strength," Daniel said quietly. "That's fear wearing armor." The bridge grew utterly still. "What choice do you offer?" the warlord demanded. "Peace," Daniel said. "Real peace. Not surrender. Cooperation. Trade. Shared borders. An end to a war neither side truly remembers how it started. And if I refuse?" Daniel's eyes began to glow. Golden light spilled across the bridge, contained discipline, immense. Every sensor screamed warnings. Every being present felt it in their bones. "Then I will stop you," Daniel said. "Not because I want to, but because I will not let you harm those I've sworn to protect." The glow faded as he stepped back. "I'm asking you to choose differently," he said. "For your people." The warlord cut the transmission. The Dominion fleet surged forward. "They're attacking!" Varric shouted. "Orders, my queen." Eltheres turned to Daniel. He gently removed her hand from his arm. "This is what I came here to do," he said. "You can't face them alone," Varric snapped. "That's suicide." "I've survived worse," Daniel replied softly. He paused at the airlock and looked back at the queen. "Remember what I told you," he said. "Compassion is not weakness." The outer door opened. Daniel Carter stepped into space. For a heartbeat, he was only a man, small, fragile, alone against a void. Then the light erupted. Golden energy exploded from him like a newborn star. Space itself seemed to bend as he accelerated forward, faster than any ship could track. He did not destroy. He disabled. Precise bursts of energy shut down engines, weapons, navigation systems. Ship after ship fell dark, drifting helplessly. Missiles passed through afterimages. Beams of plasma bent away as if repelled by gravity itself. In 15 minutes, 200 ships were neutralized. In 30, 500. The Dominion fleet collapsed into chaos. Daniel moved through it like judgment restrained by mercy. At last, he appeared aboard the warlord's flagship. He stood before the stunned commander, glowing, unstoppable. "Choose," Daniel said. "Peace, or I end this." The warlord stared at him, trembling. "What are you?" he whispered. "I'm human," Daniel replied, "and I choose to stop." The warlord lowered his head. "Peace," he said. "We accept." When Daniel returned, he could barely stand. Eltheres caught him as he collapsed. "You did it," she whispered. "You stopped a war." Daniel smiled weakly. "I broke one antenna. That might need fixing." She laughed, truly laughed, for the first time in years. And the galaxy changed. The war ended without a final shot. That fact alone stunned the galaxy. Within hours of the Dominion fleet's surrender, emergency transmissions flooded every major network. Hundreds of warships drifting powerless. Crews alive but unharmed. No planetary bombardments. No mass graves. No victory songs soaked in blood. Just silence, and a single name spreading faster than fear ever had: Daniel Carter. On the Imperial flagship, medics worked in tense quiet as Daniel lay on a recovery platform. His skin was pale, his breathing shallow. The power he had unleashed, controlled as it was, had torn through limits no body was meant to cross. Queen Eltheres did not leave his side. Commander Varric stood at the edge of the chamber, arms crossed, conflict etched across his face. He had seen battle all his life. He had believed in strength earned through domination. And yet, what he had witnessed out there in the void shattered every doctrine he had ever trusted. A single human had defeated an armada and chosen mercy. He should have killed them, Varric muttered. They will remember this humiliation. They will remember survival. Eltheres replied without turning. That matters more. Daniel stirred hours later. His eyes opened slowly. The familiar gray dulled with exhaustion. He tried to sit up and failed. Don't, Eltheres said, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. You nearly burned yourself apart. Still here, he murmured. Good sign. You terrified half the galaxy, she said. A faint smile touched his lips. Only half. News reached him in waves. The Dominion formally accepted peace talks. Neutral systems demanded copies of the treaty framework. Trade guilds began negotiations within days. Species that had spent centuries preparing for war suddenly faced a future they had never planned for. Peace was unfamiliar and unsettling. Back on the throne world, the Imperial Council reconvened. This time, the atmosphere was different. Fear had shifted direction. Daniel Carter stood before them, not restrained, not guarded, but invited. Some council members avoided his gaze. Others stared openly, trying to reconcile the quiet human with the living legend forming around him. High Commander Varric stepped forward. I oppose you, he said bluntly. I believed you were a hidden threat. You were right, Daniel replied calmly. I was... Varric stiffened. But, Daniel continued, I'm trying to be something else. Silence followed. Finally, Varric lowered his head, not fully, not in submission, but in acknowledgement. The Empire owes you its survival, he said. The Council ratified Daniel's protected status unanimously. More importantly, they ratified the Queen's decision. The unwanted union was no longer unwanted. In the month that followed, the galaxy transformed in small, uneven steps. Trade corridors opened between former enemies. Mixed species stations became common. Children of worlds that once exchanged missiles now exchanged languages and stories. There were setbacks, protests, extremists on all sides who believed peace was weakness. Daniel faced them all the same way he faced everything else. Quietly, patiently, without violence. Eltheres watched him change the Empire not through force, but presence. He worked alongside engineers restoring disabled ships. He advised diplomats on conflict de-escalation. He spoke openly about his past, not glorifying it, not hiding it. I was made to destroy, he told them. That doesn't mean I have to keep doing it. One evening, months after the war, Eltheres found him in the palace gardens again. The bioluminescent plants glowed softly, reflecting off crystal pathways. You could rule, she said. The galaxy would follow you. Daniel shook his head. Ruling isn't building. She studied him. Then what do you want? He looked up at the alien sky. 2 moons, familiar now. A place where I don't have to be a weapon anymore. She stepped closer. You already have one. For the first time since their union began, the silence between them was warm. No duty, no strategy, just choice. Yet beyond the stars, not everyone welcomed this new era. Hidden factions watched, old powers whispered, and somewhere in the dark, forces older than the Dominion began to take notice. Peace had rewritten the galaxy, but history was not finished yet. Peace did not arrive with celebration. It arrived quietly, uncertain, like a fragile structure that might collapse if touched too hard. 6 months after the Dominion fleet stood down, the galaxy was still learning how to exist without constant war. Borders that had once been drawn in blood were now lines on negotiator tables. Ancient enemies sat across from one another, speaking carefully, suspiciously, afraid that peace was only a pause before the next catastrophe. And at the center of it all stood a human who did not want to stand at the center of anything. Daniel Carter spent most of his days far from thrones and councils. He worked in shipyards, repairing vessels disabled during the standoff. He helped design new joint defense protocols that focus on protection rather than conquest. When asked to give speeches, he refused more often than he accepted. "I'm not a symbol," he would say. "I'm a warning about what happens when fear decides the future." Some listened, others did not. There were attempts on his life. Quiet ones, poorly planned. Extremists from multiple species believed killing Daniel would return the galaxy to balance. Each attempt failed, not because Daniel fought back, but because the Empire protected him as fiercely as it once protected its queen. Queen Elthries herself had changed. The Empire noticed it before she did. She listened more, issued fewer immediate commands. She asked questions, dangerous questions, about why certain worlds were still impoverished, why conquered systems had never truly been integrated, why fear had been allowed to masquerade as order. Some generals resisted, some left, others adapted. One evening, as twin moons rose over the capital, Elthries stood on the palace balcony overlooking her city. Light stretched to the horizon, a living constellation of millions of lives moving beneath her rule. Daniel joined her, leaning lightly against the railing. "You're thinking too loudly again," he said. She glanced at him. "You hear that? I've learned the signs." She was silent for a long moment. "The galaxy still fears you." He nodded. "They should, just not for the reasons they think. They believe you're the most dangerous being alive." Daniel smiled faintly. And now, he said softly, "I'm tired." She studied him. The human who had faced fleets alone, who had reshaped interstellar politics not with domination but refusal. "What do you think your true power is?" she asked. Daniel considered the question carefully. "It's not the energy," he said, "not the strength. Those were given to me without my consent. My real power is choosing what I don't do with them." She felt something settle inside her at those words. For the first time in her life, Elthries made a decision that had nothing to do with survival or dominance. She reached for his hand. Their skin, blue and pale, contrasted sharply, yet fit naturally together. "You are no longer a political necessity," she said. "No longer an obligation. You are free to leave, Daniel Carter." He looked at her, surprised. "And if I stay?" "Then you stay by choice," she replied. "As my equal." Daniel turned back to the city, to the alien sky that had slowly become familiar. "I spent my life running from what I was made to be," he said. "I don't want to run anymore." She leaned closer. "Then stay." The moment was interrupted by a quiet alert, a secure transmission. Not hostile, not urgent, curious. Elthries activated the hologram. Representatives from dozens of systems appeared, leaders, scientists, civilians. Species that had never before spoken directly to the Empire, without intermediaries. They were forming something new, a coalition, not an empire, not an alliance forged by fear. A council dedicated to preventing the creation of weapons like Daniel Carter ever again by any species. They wanted his input, his guidance. Daniel listened in silence. When the transmission ended, Elthries looked at him. "They want you to help guide the future." "I don't want to lead," he said. "They don't want a leader," she replied. "They want an example." Daniel exhaled slowly. "Then I'll help," he said, "but on one condition." "Name it." "No more child soldiers. No secret programs. No turning people into tools. Not here. Not anywhere." Elthries nodded without hesitation. "I swear it." Years later, historians would argue over when the galaxy truly changed. Some would say it was the day a human stepped into space alone and stopped an armada. Others would say it was the moment a conquer queen chose trust over control. Daniel believed it happened much earlier. It happened the first time he chose not to kill when killing would have been easier. On a quiet night, beneath two alien moons, Daniel Carter stood beside Queen Elthries. not as weapon, not as symbol, but as a man who fixed broken things. And the galaxy, long shattered by fear, finally began to heal. He had been made to destroy, but he chose to build. And that choice became the greatest power of all.